We want to know why, because it's abnormal. Then, acting on other. Now, what does that mean? Well, unfortunately, especially in the U.S., as a society that apparently values owning firearms, we've had situations where people have felt that their performance appraisals were unfair by their supervisor, and you know of these situations if you read the press, and have returned to the workplace and killed a supervisor. I can't think of any specific one at the moment. I'm not suggesting this, and I'm not endorsing it. But if the anger from felt inequity escalates to a high enough level, it can result in disastrous behavior on the target people in the system. Cognitively distort inputs and outcomes of other. This is the comparison other, person you're comparing to. And if you feel that you are underpaid compared to the other individual, you might bring down the outcomes and inputs of the other person to make the ratios equal. It's hard to do, but it is possible. And then the last one is to change the reference groups or the comparison person, simply switching away from the one you're comparing to compare it to another individual. Now, it may take you some time to perceive the power of felt inequity in a system, and also for you to reflect on your experiences in the past and into the future. This is potent stuff where we can have whole batches of disorders in an organization. We had faculty turnover in the last couple of years that was the highest I've ever seen in my 35 years here. And I know why. Felt inequity. And when the faculty have 25 years or more service, they can retire from the university, and they can go do anything else that they want, except they cannot do it with the university. And we had several people retire sooner than I thought that they would. And the longer you stay in the system, if you're under the state system, the more money you get in retirement pay. Equity sensitivity. This is the difference in people's responses to inequity. Equity sensitives, they react as predicted. They really are sensitive to feelings of unfairness, and they know what is right for them and what is wrong. Benevolence, accept negative inequity. I haven't met too many of these, but these are people that are often in the helping occupations, where they put in an enormous amount of time to help another individual. And I know in the online MBA course, there's at least one person that fits this description, and if she watches this tape, she will know whom I'm speaking of. She's in a helping occupation, and it sounds like there is a great deal of time invested in helping out some people. Entitled, accept positive inequity with no guilt feelings. This is the guy that I mentioned to you who was the only child. So it was okay for him to have the Corvette when he was 21 years old, even though none of his friends had a Corvette, and he said, I deserve it. Can you identify with that? Can you, do you perceive me as describing something that is not true? No? I remember this guy vividly. Okay, now here are the guidelines, and we'll come to a close because I'm not going to be able to handle much more of this with my throat, and I'll come back and pick it up with behavior modification next week. These are guidelines which I would ask you to compare to what your organizations do. Tie rewards to performance. Preferably tie them to performance close in time. Now, one of the things, just because of some traveling that I've done off and on in the last couple of months, I end up eating at restaurants, and I tip. And what is the going tip rate in the U.S. is 15%, isn't it? Am I right about that? And so I usually do 15%, and then sometimes if the service is really extraordinary, and this is just a loan, you know, nobody else with me, I'll tip a bit more. And invariably, they will say something to me when I'm leaving the restaurant, if they see me. And sometimes I deliberately put myself in a position to be seen so I can do my own laboratory experiments with perceived equity and inequity. And then there are times, and of course it can go the other way, right? So if you don't tip 15%, you tip 10%. Should I run fast? I'll try that one and see what happens. Use valued rewards. So you're going to have to know the valence on the outcomes for the individuals. What do they really want? And it can be extraordinary range. You may say it's always going to be paid. No, it is not. Right now, for most of you, perhaps so. But it can change. Watch equity and fairness of reward distribution. It'll come back and bite you if you don't. And if you raise children, you'll find that this is an exceptional part of what goes on. If you raise dogs, believe it or not, animals can perceive equity in the distribution of rewards, which is typically, in their world, typically as food. Note, please, that in the word incentive, and people mix up incentive and reward. Incentive looks to the future. You hold it out. Reward confirms the behavior and looks to the past. So often faculty design courses with extra points, extra credit kinds of things, and that's intended to help you out. I don't tend to do that. And it's a personal philosophy. But they may dangle out the extra credit for some extra work, and that's an incentive. When you complete the work, you receive the extra credit. That is the reward. And likewise, in the training of animals that we were talking about last week, whatever reward you use to shape the behavior, the incentive, when you deliver it, it is the reward.